I just think the last people who ought to control all this are the government, since it's the government that hangs in the balance here. So you shouldn't let the incumbents make the decision. You don't want a mayor choosing who gets to debate against him for mayor, right? Well, surely that applies to the national level too. Surely a mayor shouldn't be able to silence his toughest challenger. That should apply for prime minister too, even more so. And we've talked about this before, how the liberal government just decided one day just to take over the debates. They just did it. And the bailout media, they just rolled over, they just did, because they're all being rented by Trudeau now, either permanently, like the CBC, or temporarily, as with the $600 million newspaper bailout. So they just agreed to this. I showed you this press release, this outrageous press release, the other day, where the Liberals just said, hey, we're appointing our hand-picked people to run these debates, but we're not even trusting them to make the key decisions. Look at this line. In the interest of time, and as a starting point for the upcoming 2019 debates, the government has established clear criteria for participation by political party leaders. And then they outline their liberal rules there. Now, this press release was dated October of 2018. Do you really think that there was no time for a debate committee to come up for rules for a debate for an election that was 12 months in the future? The rules can be hammered out in a week, in a day if needed. It wasn't about the interest of time. It was about the interest of the Liberal Party. They wrote the rules here. The Liberals did it, and then they just announced it. They just nationalized the debates, and they wrote the rules. And so they're deciding which of their opponents they want there. Now, they couldn't really avoid Andrew Scheer or Jagmeet Singh. That would just be too high-handed to kick them out. But what about the smaller parties? What about Elizabeth May? Really, she's just a Me Too for the Liberals. What about the Bloc Quebecois? Can they participate? The party has almost disappeared, you know. And obviously it's irrelevant in English Canada. They're not even running outside Quebec. So should they be in the debates? What about Maxime Bernier and his People's Party? Like I said before, those would be up to the media and debate hosts and even other parties before. Some party might say, I'm not participating unless Elizabeth May is in. Some party might say, I'm not participating if Elizabeth May is in. A few elections back, when Elizabeth May, who was in the single digits in the polls and had no chance of being PM, she didn't have a full slate of candidates. She was really just a one-person pundit. But the media really like her, so they campaigned to get her in the debates. And the Conservatives made the political decision to agree. They didn't want to seem intransigent or censorious, so they agreed. Now, maybe it was a good thing. I don't know. In the end, it wasn't up to the Conservatives themselves. They didn't have the power to just say yes or no. They could have pouted and not participated, but that probably would have looked bad. In the end, they went along with it. But not now. Now the Liberals can just sort of make these strategic decisions about who they want and who they don't want. They can just make it so. And there's no debating it. They just order it. And so they have done. So look at this. This is from last year. Last year, here's Trudeau's spokesman, an MP named Karina Gould, and she said, Bernier can join leaders' debates if People's Party meets nomination threshold. Cool. Maybe a little bit. Maxime Bernier would be eligible to appear in the 2019 leaders' debates if his upstart People's Party successfully nominates candidates in at least 90% of the ridings, Democratic Institutions Minister Karina Gould said Thursday. By the way, Bernier has a lot more candidates nominated right now than the Liberal Party does. I don't know if you know this, but the Liberals have dozens of unfilled seats, no candidates, just none. Trudeau will handpick them. So much for local democracy, which he loves to, or used to love to brag about. But my point is, Bernier surely exceeds the Liberals in nominations, but he's being excluded. It's just a fact. The next official debates coming up, the Monk debates, Bernier just isn't allowed. And unlike last time when there was public pressure brought to bear on the debate organizers and the other parties, it's all moot here. What Trudeau wants, Trudeau gets. Karina Gould looks friendly enough as a person, but she's actually a bit of a thug. Remember, she's the one that Trudeau appointed to censor the internet. She's the one who set up that 5-man internet emergency censorship panel that the chief clerk of the Privy Council is going to be on. They'll deploy in the election to shut down stories they don't like. So she simply doesn't want Bernier there, so it's done. Even if the Monk debates, even the CBC, if all the other parties wanted Bernier there, they can't because the government just decided. Like a mayor just deciding which of his rivals can or can't have the honor and privilege of debating him. Look, I know a lot of our viewers at The Rebel are Andrew Scheer supporters. Not fans so much. I've yet to actually meet someone who loves Andrew Scheer. It's more of a loyalty thing to the Conservative Party. It's a passive thing. Fine. I've met plenty of people who think Maxime Bernier is a splittist who's going to split the vote. And, there's some truth in that. So, fine. That can be the Conservative Party's point of view. They'd prefer it if Bernier wasn't in the debates, perhaps. But having that point of view is completely different than having Justin Trudeau, through the power of the government, simply order that a candidate is banned. A candidate who surely has just as much right to be there as Elizabeth May. And insanely, the leader of the Bloc Quebecois, I'm serious, under the Trudeau rules, the leader of the Bloc Quebecois will be in the English language debates, even though he has no candidates in English Canada, but not Maxime Bernier, because that suits Trudeau just right. That's an excerpt from the Ezra Levant show. Every day, I do a video monologue, and then I interview an interesting guest, and then I end by reading my hate mail. But you've got to subscribe to it, which you can do at therebel.media/shows.